We are entering a new phase of animation, and it is very well challenging the status quo. What's poppin'? What better way to tailgate off Independence Day than talking about hell? And lots of it. Seriously though, today is going to be a different video than what I normally do, but today's topic is especially interesting because we are witnessing animation change right before our eyes. Today I want to talk about the stepping stones for tomorrow's animation. But before we get into that, we need to talk about animation trends. For those of you who need examples of an animation trend in most recent memory, there is, of course, the Pixar look that basically every studio wants to replicate because why wouldn't they? Pixar, although not the powerhouse it used to be, still has a very recognizable look with its style and animation. And that kind of applies for all Disney movies in general. Their characters look very soft and squishy, and have these more rounded features to them, and have bigger eyes, which distinct them as a Pixar or Disney look. And a lot of studios have tried to do this. Or if you need another example, we can talk about the Spider-Verse look, which basically everyone and their mama now is trying to get their movies to look at that. Everybody wants a piece of this pie. Netflix's Arcane did it, DreamWorks' Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and of course the most recent being Nickelodeon's Mutant Mayhem. And by no means am I saying trends are a bad thing. It's perfectly okay. Trends have been going on in the art industry for ages now. This is not exactly a new concept. And it's totally okay to take inspiration from other people's works. Hell, that's kind of what everybody does. But let's say the Spider-Verse trend, you've definitely seen it a lot more as a recent, a lot of movies want to combine that 2D, 3D style and have it be more interesting to look at. I really personally enjoy it because even though they take inspiration, they still add their own artistic flair to it, and it doesn't just feel like a blatant copy of someone else's work. And again, it's perfectly okay for other studios to use this style. Okay, now that we have a full understanding of what an animation trend is, let's get into the real meat of this video, because we are kind of seeing one happen right before our eyes. As it is in Hollywood, it's pretty difficult to push out a passion project without the aid of a giant animation titan or without the interference of a studio or studio meddling. Larger companies are afraid of pushing out original ideas because it might not make a lot of money, which is why the rise of sequels and reboots and spin-offs are so prevalent nowadays in Hollywood's industry. They know that it can make the money, that's why they do them. Though interestingly enough, I'd almost argue that it isn't really working anymore. But that's a whole subject for another video, we'll save it for later. It's a sad reality that some creators have to face, that their idea might not be exactly what they wanted, and so they sort of have to compromise. Sometimes those compromises end up making the project better, but a good amount of times they make it worse. But let's look at the internet, because as much of a cesspool as it is, it's got some really great stuff on here. For the purpose of this video though, I will only be focusing on YouTube, as it is the platform I'm most familiar with and most experienced with. I know there's a lot of other platforms, like for instance Newgrounds, that upload some animations and all kinds of creative artwork there, but I'll be focusing on YouTube for the sole purpose that I am just more experienced with it. I don't think it'd be fair of me to speak on behalf of these other platforms when I don't really understand them as much as I do YouTube. Now that that's out of the way, allow me to introduce you to the animation corner of YouTube. This corner of animation has some really great gems here, because these creators have complete creative liberty of what they can do with their projects. You often find these animations in their rawest, purest form. And by no means is this a new thing either. Even back in the olden days of YouTube, people were making really cool videos using animation techniques. One I saw a lot of growing up was stop motion animation. And I absolutely love stop motion animation, and I could make a whole video talking about it. This channel initially started off as a place to upload my stop motions. But even then, that's just the tip of the iceberg because there's a whole world of animation to explore. Now, some of these projects look a lot more homemade, and that's not a bad thing. It gives them their own little charm to them, and I love to see it. It's great to see that despite limitations, they still make the most out of what they do. Some talented creators can make do without a whole team backing them up, and it's really inspiring. But then there are some creators who have built up such a reputation and have gained a whole team backing them up that their animations look pretty high quality for YouTube standards. I mean, take a look at Alan Becker. He made stickman videos super creative, inventive, and just amazing to watch. All this with stickman. That's pretty impressive. Then there's projects like Hell of a Boss or Lackadaisy. And that's where you realize, wait, this is like studio level of quality. How the hell did they do this? Well, throughout the late 2010s and especially in the 2020s, we have seen a boom in the indie animation industry. Take a show like Lackadaisy, for example, which has clear artistic flair and a style that's genuinely super charming, encapsulating this 1900s New York mobster style. This show used crowdfunding to make all this possible. And crowdfunding is exactly what it sounds like. Having people support your project by funding it allows these creators to have a higher budget and output something that rivals some of the stuff even studios like Disney are putting out. There are ways to get a show idea into the world, but often you might be turned down or limited on what you can and can't do. This idea of crowdfunding and having supporters is their way of saying, screw it, I'm gonna do my own thing. And these videos perform massively well. People love to see new styles and a new story that feels exactly what the creator intended. Take a look at Has Been Hotel, which is created by VisiPop, who also does an internet series previously mentioned, Hell of a Boss. Although the pilot of the show was released here on YouTube, this show garnered close to 90 million views on YouTube and became an instant hit, so much so that the show was picked up for a full-blown season. Yeah, an internet creator was picked up by a production company. That is just insane to even think about. The company A24, which has been involved with stuff like Euphoria and The Lighthouse, decided that they'd give this one a chance. Has Been Hotel, just as a pilot, looks fantastic. There's so much world building already being at play, and the characters are really fun and interesting, and there is a huge setup for a story going on. So to hear that this is getting picked up by a bigger company is really promising. To say that this is a win is still underselling it. The shift is happening now on what can be done to have a show idea be created. And with stuff like crowdfunding or petitions and supporters, indie creators now have a better shot than before. But this isn't even the first time we have had a content creator go on to create an animated TV show. I want to draw your attention to Olin Rogers. God, my respect for him is indescribable. When I think of an underdog story, this is what I think of. Olin Rogers started off as a YouTuber creating story videos and sketches with some of his friends. And sometime 13 years ago, on May 4th, 2010, Olin would upload what would be his first sign of Final Space, a small rough cartoon titled Gary Space. And although it was pretty rough and very simple, it had the groundwork in what would be in his final version of his show. In 2016, he would upload a pilot of his show, which kept some of the concepts from his cartoon, but were changed and fleshed out a lot more drastically. And this pilot fits closely in line to what Final Space has now become. TBS eventually picked the show up and would air it. Unfortunately, with the second merger, the show would be cancelled. And Final Space, building up to a huge plot beat, would unfortunately be cut short. This didn't stop Olin though. He wanted his creation to be given a proper finale. Pushing for more to be given to him, he managed to squeeze out a VR game and a graphic novel that would conclude the story of Final Space. And the novel sold quickly. Although he didn't get the ending he wanted with the full animated season, he still managed to get something, and he stayed persistent all the way through. He is a prime example of what you can do with just an idea. All of these animators are. Some may not be airing their animation on TV, but that's just perfectly fine. The amount of quality and love put into each of these projects is enough to make people want to watch them. And some of these animators, they get a lot of support. I have a strong feeling that throughout the next few years, we are only going to see more and more crowdfunders, petitions, and pitches to networks to get these indie creators into the mainstream. And I'm all here for it. I love this platform and all these creators because they managed to do what they wanted to do. With there being a bit of a vacuum in good animated TV content, I have a feeling these indie creators are going to be exactly what is needed to fill this void. These creators are going to be even more important as time goes on, as they are the future of animation. I absolutely adore and respect all of them, and I think that the work they do is honestly just fantastic. It's incredible to see these talented people put their minds to something and entertain their audience, whether it be a smaller audience or a much larger one. They still want to have something to show, and I can totally respect that. Animation is a wonderful art form for so many people, and I'm glad to see that the animation scene is only becoming more expansive and diverse. Hey, if you enjoyed this video and love animation, subscribe and leave a like to support this video. And leave a comment on which one of these creators I mentioned is your favorite. And guys, we are so close to 3,000 subscribers, so it'd be amazing to hit it. But that's all for now, so I'll catch you all next time.